Hey everybody, welcome to the Conscious Love Show. Whether you are single, you are in a relationship, or you're healing a broken heart, this show is here to inspire you, to remind you how beautiful, lovable, and amazing you truly are, and to give you the practical tools and insights to navigate from wherever you are right now to the loving relationship that you so deeply want to have. My name is Sane. I'm a certified transformational coach and trainer with over a decade experience helping people release their trauma and open their hearts to love. I've delivered seminars all over the world, coached thousands of people through my online platforms and programs, and every week I'm coming straight to you with the hottest insights and the best teachers around, bringing you powerful resources and profound conversations to heal your relationship with love, dating, and yourself. I'm so grateful you're here, and if it's your first time, welcome. You can count on me to always show up for you with my very best and a commitment to learn and grow myself so I can serve you to my maximum ability. Thanks so much for tuning into the show. I've got some awesome things planned for you today. So without further ado, let's dive in. All right. Hello again, everyone. Hello. Welcome back to the Conscious Love Show podcast. Sane on with you today. Pleasure as always. Happy to be back. I always look forward to diving in with you, and thank you for being here. Today is Shane's Diary entry number 7. And if this is your first time joining in for a Shane's Diary episode, then welcome. This is a series I started last year, and the intention was to take a break from the typical kind of relational content and advice that I generally produce here on the podcast, and create a space where I can just share from the heart, where I can relate to you person to person. In these episodes, my intention is not to give you advice necessarily or to teach you anything. That's not to say there aren't lessons woven into what I'm sharing here, but really this is just a place for you to read my diary, so to speak, a place for you to see my internal world, my thoughts, my feelings, how I'm navigating this human journey that we're all on together. And I hope this gives you an opportunity to see the more human side of me, to get to know the man behind the message, and to see the part of me that is not a teacher or a coach or anything like that, but just a person who's navigating this journey with you, going through all the same things that we're all going through. And today I want to talk about maybe some charged or hot topics that have been on my mind a lot lately, and I know have been on all of our minds lately, or at least most of our minds. And that is what's happening in the government right now, what's happening with the Epstein files, and all of what this represents too, because I think we can get caught up on, specific instances like, did you see what Trump said or Trump did, or who's in the Epstein files, or why isn't the DOJ releasing all of this? And those are important questions and those are important concerns, and I don't want to minimize that, but what I want to touch on in today's episode is how I've been processing all of this internally. And I think that's the more important thing. And these charged issues have a tendency to take us out of ourselves and draw us into the external world. And something that I've fundamentally learned, and if there is a lesson in today's episode, this is what I want to share, is that when we participate in the external world from a dysregulated state, we only increase the problems that are already there. And it doesn't matter how good our intentions are. And so much of what we're seeing right now creates outrage because, let's just say, it is outrageous. And when we operate from a state of outrage, we are operating from a state that is inherently disempowered. And I don't want to share this message as someone who has mastered this. because I, like you, most likely, or like I'm struggling in managing my own outrage right now. Like I see my wife and I at the dinner table, we end up getting caught up in these conversations. And sometimes I ask myself, is this what I want my time with my family to be occupied with? Like, as my daughter grows up, are these the conversations that I want her to hear operating in the background? And there's a fine line here, because nobody wants to stick their head in the sand and ignore what's happening. And I think that we're at a place in society where we have ignored what was happening for a long time. And I think we're getting to a place where we can't necessarily ignore it anymore, where like it's reaching a tipping point where continuing to ignore it is going to do more harm than good. At the same time, we need to be really conscious with how we participate with it. And so what I want to share in today's episode is how I'm participating with it. And some of the things that I think I'm doing well, some of the things that I think I'm not doing so well. I want to name some of the things that I think should be named, because we can't ignore them in terms of what's happening socially, what we're seeing on social media, what we're seeing in the government. And maybe offer a perspective for how we can get through this without losing hope, without falling into a state of complete disillusionment or a state of complete despair. And let me say, I think there are powers operating in the world right now that are going to directly benefit from us feeling powerless, from us feeling outraged, from us feeling like we're in despair, from us feeling like there's nothing we can do. And I think a lot of the information that we're receiving right now, whether intentionally or unintentionally, but I think it is designed to create just that experience. So I want to have just an honest conversation about these things today. And to the listeners, you might agree with some of what I say. You may disagree with some of what I say. And I welcome all of it. I don't need you to agree with me. I don't need to be right about this. I'm just being honest and vulnerable about how I'm processing what I'm seeing right now. And if you're processing it differently, I respect that. I'm going to speak about Trump specifically for a moment. And what I want to say about Trump is he is a master of harvesting attention. Whether you like him or you don't like him, I think this is something we can all agree on, is that he is a master of harvesting attention. He has a unique ability to get the whole world talking about him. And what I've noticed is really, I'm going to call it masterful, but maybe not in a positive way necessarily. But whether you like him or you hate him, he easily becomes the center of every conversation. And I think he does that very intentionally. And, you know, when I sit at the dinner table with my wife and we end up talking about Trump, I can't help but feel like that motherfucker just stole my dinner from me. And that's what I want to caution all of us against right now. And this isn't just about Trump, but I'm using him as an example. Epstein is another example of this. Gaza and Iran, like all of these social issues, Russia, Ukraine, like everything that we're seeing happen in the world right now, all of these hot topics are a version of this. And I think, as I said earlier, the powers that are operating in the world at this time are benefiting from harvesting our energy. Because this is what I've noticed when I sit down with my wife at dinner and we end up talking about the schools that just got bombed in Iran, which, oh my God, is just... Like, I have a daughter who's going to daycare right now. And, like, oh my God, if her school got bombed, I just can't imagine. It's the most heartbreaking fucking thing in the world. To know that parents are losing their children, to know that children are going through this kind of terror at school, and to know that my government is doing this, it's disgusting. And that's not something that we want to ignore, right? We can't sit back and ignore the fact that this is happening. At the same time, when it becomes the conversation at the dinner table, or when it becomes the thing that's occupying my mind, when I could be sitting down and crafting a message that's going to support my business, support my audience, support my clients, make real meaningful change in the life of an individual, that's what I call harvesting energy. And if I open up social media and I see some posts that can activate my nervous system, that can create a sense of righteous indignation or a sense of outrage or a sense of anger, and it can derail what I otherwise would have been doing that day without leading to meaningful change, I have now had my nervous system hijacked and my energy harvested to support the very system that I'm raging against. And I think that's the part of it that makes me sick. Because when I'm outraged, when I'm dysregulated, when I'm in despair, when I'm in hopelessness, I'm not doing anything about these atrocities. And I'm also not doing anything to serve my life, my work, my audience, my daughter in a meaningful way. And so in a very interesting way, I become complicit in what's happening. And I think that is perhaps the biggest tragedy that could happen right now. And it's so easy. So I want to touch on the Epstein files for a moment, because aside from who Epstein was and the crimes he committed and all of the powerful people in the world that were colluding with him in these crimes or complicit or involved in these crimes, I think these Epstein files are pointing to something more that's bigger than just Epstein Island and the young girls who were abused there, which is horrible in and of itself. But I think what these files are pointing to is that there is a class of people, and I'm going to say it's basically the billionaire class. Maybe it's not every single billionaire. I don't know. I'm not saying the moment you become a billionaire, you're a part of this. That's not what I'm saying. But generally speaking, I think it's the billionaire class. And these are the people who are literally shaping the world that the rest of us live in. These are the people that are making the rules of the game that the rest of us have to play in. But they don't have to play by the same rules. So, I think what the Trump administration has highlighted, and if this hasn't come clear in the way I'm talking about it, I'll just be direct about it now. I'm no fan of Trump. And if you are, I respect your right to support whatever political candidate you support. I don't personally understand how anybody could support someone with this lack of morals and lack of ethics, and I don't need to get into a political debate about it right now. I have every right to determine who I support as much as you do. But I think something the Trump administration has allowed the public to see that other politicians didn't, that other presidents didn't. And it's because I don't think other presidents were necessarily better than Trump. Maybe some were and some weren't. But I think other presidents played the game in a way where they allowed all the same things to keep happening behind the scenes, but they presented it to the public better. And Trump doesn't play that game. Trump doesn't play nice. He's not diplomatic. He doesn't speak the right language that other politicians do. And I think this is a gift that is being revealed to the public through the Trump administration right now, is that he is showing how the government actually works. And what we're seeing right now is that the billionaire class has the ability to shape policies, to shape laws, to shape the reality that we all live in. That the tech companies are moving forward with AI. And I think AI is a wonderful tool in so many ways, but the reality is that AI is going to completely change the reality that we all live in. It's going to change the workforce. Growing up, we were all told if you want to be successful, become a doctor or a lawyer. And ironically, two jobs that are going to be replaced by AI the fastest are doctors and lawyers, because those are jobs that AI can easily do. And so the very nature of what it means to be successful in this world is going to change when AI becomes mainstream. And these tech companies that are funded by billionaires are moving forward and literally reshaping the world we live in, and none of us have any say in it. We literally just have to deal with the conditions they create for us. And they make the rules. We play by the rules, but the rules don't apply to them. And I think that's what the Epstein files have brought to light, is that before this was always happening, and it was kind of happening behind the scenes, but what the Epstein files are revealing is that this network of elites was more closely connected than we realized, and that they were operating and making agreements with each other behind the scenes that none of us were privy to, and that these agreements were literally shaping the world that we live in. And that when it comes down to it, the law protects them, but it doesn't protect us. And that's what we're seeing in the DOJ right now, where these files have been released and perpetrators' names have been redacted, but victims' names have been left visible. When redactions are supposedly there to protect victims. And yet, in practice, what's being done is perpetrators are being protected. The wealthy elites are being protected. And it's interesting, too, how they've released enough. And I think it's very strategic what they do release and what they don't. They've released things about Bill Gates, for example, but nothing that would directly implicate him in crimes, right? Things about Deepak Chopra. It's interesting who they have allowed to be the sacrificial lambs, so to speak. Prince Andrew. And yet, so many figures have been protected. And I want to say I'm not a conspiracy theorist, actually. Like, I think that there are very reasonable explanations for everything that's happening, and it doesn't involve wild conspiracies. All of this can be tied back to pretty much basic human motives and what happens in environments where wealth and power consolidates. And there are very clear psychological patterns that you can see being played out among all these people. And it doesn't need the leap to jump to wild conspiracies. In fact, I think when we jump to wild conspiracies, it ends up sensationalizing these topics and preventing us from seeing what's actually happening. At the same time, I want to say that I don't think any of us can really know everything that's happening, the full scope of it. We can't know who's truly guilty and who's not, or who truly did what or who didn't. And that's what I want to name, and that's what I want to point to, and this is what I think is so important for us as citizens to realize, is the DOJ has done a very good job of releasing these files in such a way that it creates a lot of speculation, a lot of conversation, a lot of outrage, without clear resolution. And that's not an accident. And what I want to really encourage all of us who are sitting back and watching this unfold to do is to not fall for the trap. So every time I open Instagram right now, and unfortunately I work on Instagram, most of my business is done through Instagram. If it wasn't, I probably wouldn't be on it at all. I'm not a fan of the platform. But every time I open Instagram, I am bombarded with post after post after post after post with video clips from these court hearings of people screaming at each other in Congress, of reports on what the Epstein files say, or what this document says, or that document says, or any and all of it. And it feels like access to information. And I had to stop and ask myself, who owns these platforms? Meta, right? So Meta is the biggest social technology company in the world. And I mean, it's not a secret that Meta has worked with the government, that Meta has made agreements with Trump, that Meta made agreements with Biden, that Meta has collaborated with the FBI to suppress certain content and skew elections in certain ways. Like this is all documented fact. This isn't a conspiracy. Like, you can look all this up. And so we have Meta, a multi-billion-dollar social information technology company that is maybe the primary force behind shaping the social conversation around any given topic. And we know that this force, this social information technology company, is in collaboration with the Trump administration, that they were at the time in collaboration with the Biden administration. Like, we know this about them. And so I have to ask, why are they allowing me to see this information? It's not because they're free speech warriors. They have already demonstrated in the past that they can clearly be incentivized by government to suppress certain information, to reveal other information. Like, Meta has already shown how they operate. So I'm not seeing this information because Meta are strong advocates of free speech. So what is the motivation behind allowing me to see this information? And I'm going to say what I think their motivation is, and I think I'm right about this. If they bombard me with enough information that are short form clips that are taken out of context, that give me enough to be outraged, but not enough to actually do anything, that they keep me glued to the screen, scrolling for one more clip, one more clip, one more clip, one more clip. They give me the experience of feeling like I'm getting somewhere, when what's actually happening is I'm being inundated with information that for the most part is not actually useful. For the most part is not actually giving me access to any meaningful change. And what it's actually doing is it's activating trauma responses in my nervous system. It's putting me into fight, flight, and freeze responses, where I want to rage and argue, fight. I want to numb and avoid, flight. Or I just get stuck in information overload and my nervous system shuts down, freeze. All of those states are ineffective. And this is what social media is really, really good at. It's really, really good at hijacking the nervous system. And again, this is not a conspiracy. We have seen that the algorithm has been trained to promote fear and outrage because that creates an uptick in retention. And social media's primary objective is to keep users on the platform, because if users stay on the platform, that shows increased audience attention that they can then give to their shareholders, and then that is better for the company, right? So it's like, again, none of this is conspiracy. This is all documented fact. The algorithm optimizes for attention. What creates attention? More than anything, fear and outrage. And so the algorithm is designed to promote content that creates fear and outrage. What does fear and outrage content do? It dysregulates our nervous system, sends us into fight, flight, and freeze responses, and keeps us stuck and ineffective. And while we are in these stuck and ineffective states, the powers that be in the world, the billionaire elite class, are able to continue doing whatever they want behind the scenes. There's a reason I don't speak on these topics very often, and I've thought about this a lot because, you know, in a lot of ways, like, I would like to be speaking more on these topics. In a lot of ways, I would like to be naming the injustice that I see in the world. And I have spoken about these things on the podcast here and there over the years, but the conclusion I came to about this is, what's actually going to be more helpful? If I spend a lot of time speaking about these topics, what ends up happening? I end up feeding the fear and outrage machine. I end up putting more people into fight, flight, and freeze responses. I end up polarizing my audience, those who agree with me versus those who disagree with me. And then my actual message gets distorted and diluted when what I actually show up here to teach every day are tools for personal empowerment. And I honestly think that's what's missing for the culture at large right now. Is we are caught up in the outrage, and we are disempowering ourselves with our own addiction to outrage. And this is what I want to share about today, because, by the way, this is my own struggle. And like, I'm speaking not as somebody who has figured all of this out, but as somebody who is actively living this every day. Because, like I said, I sit down at the dinner table, and before I know it, an hour has gone by, and my wife and I are sitting here and talking about the Epstein files. We're sitting here and talking about Trump and ICE and all of these things that are happening. And I realized that that's an evening with my wife and an evening with my family that I'm never going to get back. That was stolen from me. I sit down to work in the morning, and I open up social media and I catch a couple of posts, and then I start scrolling, and before I know it, an hour has gone by, and I've been caught up in the outrage and the what's in the Epstein files and what did ICE do and all of these things. And I see that that's an hour of my life that I'm never going to get back. An hour when I could have created content that would earn money, that would support my family. An hour that I could have crafted a message that I would put out in the world that would meaningfully affect somebody and give them more access and power in their lives. And what I've noticed is the times when I've been most effective in my life are the times when I have chosen to disengage from the political outrage machine. And that's that's really hard to do because there's a whole narrative that if you don't participate in this, you're not a good citizen, or you don't care about the victims, or you don't care about the entire civilization that was just decimated in Palestine and all the children that are starving right now and across the board, right? And the fact is that I do care. I care so much. And I sit here and I hold my daughter, and I know that my daughter has a safe home to live in, and I know that she has food to eat, and I know that she has security. And I pray with everything in my soul that China or Russia or Iran doesn't drop a bomb on us tomorrow and that suddenly my daughter doesn't have those things. And then it breaks my heart to know that there's some child, thousands of children in Palestine right now that don't have those things. And it's so unfair that my daughter does and that those children don't. And I don't not want my daughter to have those things, but it fucking pisses me off that these other children don't have them as well. And I look at this class of elite people that are completely insulated by their wealth and their power. That if the bombs do come, they're going to take their family and they're going to go into a bunker and they're going to be fine while the rest of us suffer out here. And meanwhile, they're the ones creating the conditions on the planet that are like this. And it's so easy to let that injustice consume you. But what I'm dealing with right now is this. I have an 8-month-old daughter that I have the pleasure of getting to interact with every single day. And every day I look into her eyes and I'm just taken aback by how beautiful she is. And I want to give her everything in the world. I just want her to have the best possible life. And it's terrifying to me to know that like my responsibility is to prepare her to live in this world. And I have no idea what this world is going to be like. I don't know what the geopolitical climate is going to be like 10 years from now. I don't know how AI is going to reshape our culture. I don't know what jobs are going to be viable for her. I don't know if we're going to still live in a democracy or if our democracy is even real to begin with. And I'm constantly struggling with the feeling that I am not capable of giving her what she needs to survive in this world, to thrive in this world. But here's what I do know. Is every time I let my energy get harvested by the algorithm, by Trump, by the DOJ, every time I let my energy get harvested by this, I am diminishing my resourcefulness that directly impacts my ability to show up for my daughter. And this is what I truly think. I don't think we need more information at this point. Like, what more do we need to know? We know that Epstein did what he did. We know that most of the powerful people in the world were involved with him to some degree. We know that the Trump administration consistently violates constitutional norms, and that members of the Trump administration have basically told the world, we're going to do whatever we want, and you can't stop us. There's nothing you can do about it. I think it's become clear that past presidents and the United States government as a whole has generally operated that way before Trump, and that they just were nicer about it. They didn't rub it in our face the way Trump does. But that we have a corrupt system that is run by a military-industrial complex that will support a country like Israel in completely wiping out a defenseless population like Palestine. Like, at this point, what more do we need to know? We don't need more information. What we need is more regulation. And I mean internal regulation first, and that might lead to external regulation, right? But what we need is to be fully resourced inside ourselves. Because we are not powerless. In fact, the elites are only elite because our lifestyles fund them. Every dollar we spend creates the world we want to live in. And we could all choose to start consciously spending our dollars in ways that defund the system. There's a lot of power in our state and local governments that we don't even participate with because we're too focused on what's happening in the White House. When we could take control of our communities that we actually live in. You know, in my work, I have the opportunity, and I know a lot of you have similar opportunities in your work, to craft messages and content and put meaningful work together that directly impacts the lives of individuals and helps them to regulate their nervous systems and helps them to become more resourced in their lives and helps them to think more clearly and feel a sense of personal agency and a sense of personal power. And if I were to devote every minute that would have been spent on outrage and fear, and I used every single one of those minutes to pour myself into crafting a piece of content or a program or a message that would directly impact someone else's experience of being resourced and connected to their own agency and powerful in their own life, and the ripple effect of how that would spill out into the world, that would do a lot more than me watching one more video on social media. than me reading one more news article, than me going through the Epstein files, trying to find every little piece of evidence. And it's interesting what the DOJ did. And it's similar to what social media does, where it's nervous system overload, right? So what did they do? They released 2 million some odd files, 2.5 million files, which is less than half of the total files. And then large portions of it were totally redacted, right? But all of this is designed to create more outrage. All of this is designed to create more discussion and more argument and to keep people locked into the fear and outrage system. But, and it's funny, like, so they release 2.5 million files. Anything that actually would implicate someone of power in these files is redacted. And then large portions of the country are going through these files line by line, which I looked it up and I tried. I don't know if any of you have tried this, but like the system they've set up for sorting through these files is very confusing and very difficult to navigate. And trying to find anything in these files is like finding a needle in a haystack. Like if you don't have AI programs that can read through these files, you'll spend your whole life looking for something and never find it. And by the way, there's probably nothing to find because anything of substance has been redacted. And so what you have is a big mind net that's designed to keep people engaged and harvest people's energy and overload their nervous systems without producing anything viable or anything of substance. And all we have on social media is a bunch of speculation. Like, if the DOJ, the Department of Justice, was actually interested in justice, one, they wouldn't have redacted the names of all the perpetrators. But two, what they would have done is they would have sorted through the files themselves. They would have named the implications, and they would have released that information to the public. And not that they wouldn't have had a library set up where, hey, if you want to read through it yourself, you can. But they would have taken responsibility for the investigation. Instead, they've left the responsibility of the investigation up to the public. Why? Because that's an overwhelming endeavor for the public to take on. It requires a lot of time, a lot of attention, a lot of energy that is actively being stolen from people's homes, from people's families, from people's businesses, from the moment that somebody has to just take a breath of fresh air and feel safe inside their body. So they've had the public do their job for them while redacting anything of substance so the public can't even do the job adequately, even if we wanted to. And I guess my message here is don't fall for it. Don't fall for it. We don't need more information. We don't need more reels of what's happening in Congress. And by the way, I want to acknowledge that I see very clearly that there are people inside the system that are fighting this right now, and I cheer those people on. I truly hope that we get complete release of the Epstein files without redactions. And I know there are people who are fighting for that. I don't know if they're going to succeed, but I cheer those people on. And I hope we get that because the public deserves that. But for you, whoever's listening to this right now, what I want to say is there are real ways you can make meaningful change in your life and in the world right now. And that's not going to happen on social media. It's not going to happen by digging through the Epstein files. It's not going to happen as long as you stay bought into the fear and outrage machine. And what I'm going to say is if any of the information they're distributing right now were useful, they wouldn't be distributing it. If there was anything on Instagram that was actually usable for the public in a meaningful way, Instagram would flag it and block it immediately. But each of us has the power to choose not to let our energy be harvested. Each of us has the power to regulate our nervous systems. Each of us has the power to choose to show up for our life, for our friends, for our family, in our communities. Each of us has the power to choose where our dollar goes and what systems that dollar funds. Each of us has the power to vote in our local elections and choose who's making the decisions in our direct communities. Each of us has the power to operate from a regulated and peaceful and balanced state and then participate in the world from a regulated, peaceful, and balanced state that then gives other people permission to do the same. Outrage feeds outrage. Peace feeds peace. And I am fully confident that the powers that be in the world right now are relying on keeping us in a state of dysregulated fear, outrage, hopelessness, and powerlessness. And so I wanted to share this. And again, I try to stay away from these topics because I don't want my voice to be something that is co-opted by the fear and outrage machine. I want to be someone who adds to the peace and empowerment of the world, not someone who adds to the chaos. And yet, I feel like we are going through a time right now where the truth of what's happening in our world and the truth of how the world operates is being revealed in a way that it has never been seen this clearly before. And I think the Trump administration and the Epstein files together have created a sense of transparency, maybe unintentionally. But they're revealing their hand, so to speak. And I think that's why it's gripping us so powerfully right now, is because we're seeing something that we have always felt was happening. But we have never seen it so blatantly in front of our faces as we have right now. And I think the system is shakier than ever. I think a lot of figures are being brought into accountability that wouldn't have been able to until now. And I hope that there's success with this, and I hope that it continues. And I know that we're at a place where we can't continue to ignore it. But the question now becomes, how do we participate with it? And I'm sharing this message today because the most important thing for us to start talking about is how do we participate with what's happening? We've got to stop talking about what's happening. We already know what's happening. We've got to stop talking about what's happening and start talking about how do we participate with what's happening. And I think that answer is different for everyone. I think there is a unique way that each of us have the opportunity to participate with this. But that clarity is only going to come when we feel safe and regulated inside of ourselves first. So that's going to be my encouragement for everyone today. Disconnect from the fear machine. Disconnect from the outrage machine. Get off of social media. Start listening to your own heart. Start feeling into the truth that lives inside of you. Start finding peace and balance and regulation and feeling safe inside your own body, safe inside your own home. And let the clarity about how you can personally participate in this come from that place. That's how we take our power back right now. I want to say that I love this country. I'm a U.S. citizen, and I love this country. It's my home. I love humanity. I love women. I love men. I love all of you listening. I truly want the best for all of us together. And it's important right now that we wake up to the conditions that we're living in. And we stop participating in the systems that allow these conditions to continue. So thank you for listening today. Thank you for being with me. I hope today's message has created peace rather than fear. I hope today's message has given you more access rather than giving you more outrage. And I know that we can get through this together. So lots of love and blessings to all of you. Thank you for being with me today. I'll be back with you next week. Take care. Bye. Thanks again for checking out the show. Please subscribe on whatever platform you listen to podcasts on the most. And I would love it so much if you leave a review and tell people what you think of us. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram @TheLivingRelationship to connect more closely. And I'm grateful to be supporting you on your journey to love.